Hi, welcome back to the RDK tutorial series. This video is part 3, where I'll show you how to download, compile, and install the RDK library. I'll be using a Linux system in this video, but after following the steps in the last video, if you're on macOS or Windows, you should be able to use either the terminal or git bash to run bash commands. That means that the steps will look just the same on all 3 systems. So with that in mind, let's get started. I should mention up front that all of the steps that we'll go through in this video are also laid out in the Getting Started section of the manual that can be found on the RDK website. So be sure to take a look at this page if you have any additional questions. The first thing that we need to do is to download the RDK library, which we can do either from the Downloads page here on the RDK website or by cloning the GitHub repository. I've actually already cloned the GitHub repo to my home directory, so the RDK library can be found within this Flexiv RDK folder. At this point, if you only plan to use Python with the RDK, and you already have Python 3.8 or 3.10 installed, you're actually already ready to move on to the next video. You don't need to complete the rest of these steps. Okay, now if you'd like to use C++ with the RDK, there are a few more steps required. The RDK is provided as a unified modern CMake library, so we can use CMake to configure and build it. So for this, the first thing I'm going to do is open up a new terminal window and then navigate into this Flexiv RDK folder that we just downloaded. So I'll open up a new terminal window and type cd for change directory and then flexiv_RDK. And as a brief side note here, if you downloaded the RDK as a zip file from the website instead of cloning the repository, it's possible that you'll find the version number appended to the end of this folder name. You could either delete it or leave it, it's not important. So I'll hit enter, and now we've opened the Flexiv RDK folder. Let me go ahead and list the contents real quick here so we can take a look. The main thing I want to point out is this CMake lists.txt file. This contains a lot of the configuration information that's needed to build the RDK library, and it should be familiar to anyone who's used CMake previously. So the next thing to do is we're going to create a new subdirectory within this Flexiv RDK directory that we'll call build, and then we'll open it up. So I can do that with the command mkdir for make directory, and then type build, and then cd build to open it. And then from here, I want to use CMake to configure and build the project. So first, I will type CMake -GUI space ... and then space ampersand. So here, CMake GUI is a program that I'm about to run to configure the project. ... just indicates where we can find the CMake lists.txt file. That stands for the parent directory of the current directory. The ampersand just causes this to run in the background. So I'll hit enter. And the next thing I'll point out is that if you're using Ubuntu, you might find that there's one more thing you need to install, which is this CMake Qt GUI. You probably won't see this message on macOS or Windows, but since we're using Ubuntu here, I will go ahead and install this. So I'll kill the process and then type sudo apt install CMake Qt GUI. And hit enter, provide a password, and wait just a minute for this to install. Okay, great. Now that this has finished installing, we can run the same command as before. So CMake -GUI ... ampersand. And now when I run it, you'll see this window appear. The first thing to do is click Configure in the bottom left, and I can leave the defaults here for now, so we'll use the default native compilers. I'll just click Finish. After this, I would recommend changing the CMake install prefix to a dedicated directory within your home directory, although you could leave it if you like, but best not to have it set to a system path like this, I think. So I will specify my home directory, the full path for it, and then some new folder name. Let's call it RDK_install. And one quick note here is that you don't want to use the tilde abbreviation here for your home directory. If you're following these steps, you want to provide the full path, because the tilde does not get expanded properly by make in the next step that we're about to run. So I'll hit enter, and then configure again, then generate, and once it says that's done, here at the bottom we can close the window and Control-C to kill the process running in the terminal. And then at this point, the next step is just to use the command make install to install the RDK library. And as we can see in the output here, the library was successfully installed to the folder that we specified for the CMake install prefix. So if I open up Files here and go back to my home directory, I can now see the RDK install folder exactly as I expected, and this is where the library has been installed to. Now, any C++ projects that we want to build can find and link to the RDK library at this location. And that includes the examples that came within the Flexiv RDK folder that we just downloaded. So I'll go build those to show you how the process works. So I'll go back to the terminal, and then the first thing to do is navigate to the example subdirectory within the Flexiv RDK folder. If I list the contents, we can see a number of C++ files here for each of the examples, as well as another CMake lists file, which contains the configuration information that we need to build these example projects. So, as before, I'm going to create a build directory and then open it up. So make dir build, cd build. Now what I need to do is define the CMake install prefix to be the same location where we installed the RDK library. And I can do that with the command CMake space dot dot space, and then I'm going to type dash all caps D CMake underscore install underscore prefix, then equals, and the path to that install location. So for me, that's home Flexiv RDK underscore install. So I'll hit enter. Great. And now that I've defined the CMake install prefix, I can go ahead and build the examples just with the command make. And in my case, I will also add -J4 to speed things up a bit by running 4 jobs in parallel, since I've got 4 cores in my CPU, but that's totally optional. So here, as expected, we can see that it's beginning to build the example projects. And once that completes, I can list the contents of the build directory, and I see an executable for each example just as expected. So it has been successful. I want to mention that in this example, we have built the examples that were inside the Flexiv RDK folder, but it doesn't have to be in that location, of course. We could have our project folder anywhere, and if we had the C++ files and a CMake list file configured, then we could create the build directory, define the CMake install prefix to be the RDK library's install location, and then our project can be built linked to the RDK library as we expect. Alright, so a couple of the steps that we just went through will look a little bit different on a Windows system, and the details for that are laid out in the Getting Started section of the RDK manual, so be sure to go take a look at that if you have any questions. At this point, we have downloaded, compiled, and installed the RDK library, and the next thing to do is to run one of the example programs that we just built to verify that everything's working correctly. And we'll get to that in the next video.